And don't forget to take those reference numbers along to your local job centre for more information and advice. Now, if the idea of becoming your own boss appeals to you, why not find out more about the Enterprise Allowance Scheme? It enables you to receive £40 a week for the first 52 weeks after your business has started. This is on top of whatever you earn for yourself and helps during the period you're trying to get established. Now, anyone between the ages of 18 and 65 can apply. There are certain conditions, of course. Staff at your local job centre will give you further help and advice. Many colleges, voluntary organisations and training centres run Women into Business courses, and there's also a support and guidance network for women starting up or expanding their own business. Local enterprise agencies offer free professional advice and business counselling to anyone considering setting up in their own business. There are over 50 enterprise agencies in the Central Television region alone. Now, if you've missed any of the details or telephone numbers that we've mentioned, ring Job Finders Helpline on 021 for Birmingham 633 4007. That's 021 for Birmingham 633 4007. Well, that's about all we have time for today. Join us again tomorrow morning for another look at some of the items we've featured on Job Finder during the past 2 weeks. Till then, bye for now.
One more time. Where were you on the night of the crime?
I told you, I was on the phone most of the night talking to 8 different people. It's a party line. You call up and you say whatever you want.
You expect us to believe that you can have your own party on the phone?
Yeah, and so can you guys.
All right, let's take him back to the cell. But before you go, you're entitled to one phone call.
Hello? Who's on the line?
You too can join the party. Dial 0898 223 666 now.
Hey, can you guys keep it down? I'm on the phone in here.
Didn't know you would ever go.
Only for a couple of days.
Didn't know you could be so tough.
Oh, stop it.
Head and shoulders? I didn't know you had dandruff.
I don't. You do.
With an ordinary medicated shampoo, dandruff can be left behind, but Head and Shoulders, used regularly, keeps it away.
You look great.
Don't have dandruff. Have great-looking hair.
One at a time.
Dairy Brilliant! Guess a Dairy triangle. What's it worth? Swap your names. What it is? Dairy Oh, come on, quick.
The Dairy mud them kids.
With its milk and cheese, Dairy Lee's a good source of calcium. And it's the taste kids will give anything for.
I get a lot more out of school chips these days.
And now you can get Dairy Lee in slices.
But he drinks Carling Black Label.
Not in here, he doesn't.
Your best bet for a fuller flavour.
Carling Black Label.
Why do fools fall in love? Why do birds sing so gay? In love with my weather, baby, say, why do they fall in love?
Mum, I've got to wash all these clothes.
Now?
Yeah, now.
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Persil Automatic's advanced formula attracts the dirt and holds onto it, leaving your clothes outstandingly clean.
Love is a losing game, and love can't
Oh, yeah? I've just
I know I will fool you, see.
Persil Automatic. For dirt, it's the fatal attraction.
And all because the lady loves Cadbury's milk tray.
Because New Zealand lamb is grated before it's gravied, you'll find that every slice is as tender as the last. So why pay more when New Zealand lamb always makes the grade?
Good morning. You're watching Central. Time now for the morning news with Anne Lucas at ITN. It's 5 a.m.
Fire at Libyan chemicals plant. They say it could be sabotage. Good morning. It's 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 15th of March, and this is the early morning news from ITN. The headlines. Washington has denied any involvement in a fire at a chemicals plant in Libya, but a news agency in Tripoli says sabotage can't be ruled out. 2 men have been arrested in Kenya in connection with the murder of the British woman Julie Ward. And Mr. Gorbachev is on the brink of unprecedented political power in the Soviet Union, although his critics have accused him of steamroller tactics. Later in the programme, the Eastern Bloc country where the government says there's no repression, yet people are arrested for criticising the bread, a report in our world news. And from American television, warnings of a devastating earthquake in California. But first, the main stories. The Americans have denied any involvement with a fire which damaged a Libyan chemicals plant. The Libyans say the factory may have been sabotaged by the US or the Israelis. The factory is in Rabta, 50 miles south of the capital. The State Department in Washington say the plant was being used to make chemical weapons.
President Bush said the United States had absolutely not been involved in the fire at the Libyan plant, which he has long claimed is being used to make deadly chemical weapons. Only last week, the White House repeated that charge, saying that weapons production had recently resumed and refusing to rule out military action to destroy it. There was no immediate evidence to show whether yesterday's massive fire at the Rabta plant was the result of an accident or sabotage, but the facility has a history of breakdowns. The most serious was in 1988, when production came to a halt shortly after the United States first charged that mustard gas and nerve gas were being produced there. Ironically, no American spy satellite was in a position to find out what was going on, and with their fleet of Blackbird spy planes mothballed by budget cuts, the US was forced to rely on ground-based intelligence for information. Colonel Gaddafi has always insisted the plant makes only pharmaceuticals. Few believe this, and the notion of the eccentric Libyan leader passing out chemical weapons to terrorists had caused widespread alarm. Despite those White House denials, a Libyan government spokesman said that the fire, which had completely destroyed the factory, was in fact the work of the Americans, or failing that, the Israelis. Whatever the cause, it now seems that Colonel Gaddafi's chemical weapons production program has received a major setback.
2 new polls give little comfort to the government, already shaken by poll tax protests. One poll gives Labour their biggest lead for nearly 20 years. The latest findings come after the Tories' first defeat in the Commons since the last election.
With the government already on the defensive over the poll tax, the events of the past few days have brought more trouble. On Tuesday night, the Tories suffered their first Commons defeat since the last general election.
253.
Labour says the government is visibly disintegrating.
Backbenchers were openly arguing with cabinet ministers on the floor of the House of Commons in between the votes. Scenes of a government which is in absolute disarray, in absolute turmoil. A government which I believe is in a near to terminal state. All the signs are there, and it would be quite astonishing and historically unprecedented if they were able to recover.
With senior Tory politicians campaigning in mid-Staffordshire, the by-election just a week away, 2 new polls have further damaged Conservative hopes of retaining the seat. One of the polls gives Labour nationally its biggest lead for nearly 20 years, with the Conservatives at 31% and Labour 21 points ahead on 52%. And a poll in this morning's Daily Mail, concentrating on the mid-Staffordshire constituency, has Labour in what it describes as a shock lead. Campaigning in the seat last night, Michael Heseltine tried to calm jitters.
Government is not easy. It is a lonely place to be. You only get the difficult decision. Nor is it a process where everything always goes right. Sometimes things go wrong.
Despite the calls by senior ministers for calm, there's no disguising Tory fears that this could be more than just short-term unpopularity.
The Soviet Parliament has begun voting on whether to give President Gorbachev the extra powers he says he needs to steer the country out of social and economic chaos. His critics have accused him of using steamroller tactics to force the measures through Parliament. Some said he had brought the country to the brink of collapse, comparing his style to a driver putting his foot on the brake and the accelerator at the same time. 2 game park wardens have been arrested in Kenya following an investigation by Scotland Yard detectives into the murder of the British woman Julie Ward. They were invited to take over the inquiry by Kenya's president. Police believe Miss Ward was held captive for some days before being killed during her visit to the Masai Mara Game Reserve. She disappeared in September 1988 while on safari. At first it was claimed she'd been eaten by wild animals. Her father John held a long campaign to prove the truth about his daughter's death. The quick thinking of a London tube driver stopped a collision involving 800 passengers. The train went the wrong way on the track during the rush hour. The driver of another train saw it coming towards him, but managed to short-circuit the power supply. London Underground say it happened because of a problem in the signalling system.
It was in this stretch of tunnel in Monday evening's rush hour that a major underground disaster so nearly happened. The incident took place on the Piccadilly line at King's Cross. A train heading west was ordered to turn back to its starting point at Cockfosters. The passengers left. The driver should have continued west to the next set of points and then back eastwards. Instead, he walked along to the cab at the other end of a train and drove back up the same line. The driver of another westbound train waiting in the tunnel suddenly saw the headlights of the first train coming towards him. He reached out to the wiring on the tunnel walls and pulled 2 wires together, causing a short circuit to cut the power supply. The approaching train stopped just 400 feet from him and his